For this initial project in Toon Boom, we are using Toon Boom 24 Premium version, and we're just going to go over the basics of doing timing and a little bit of squash stretch for a simple basic project just to introduce ourselves to the different tools. So let's create a new scene, and I'm going to call this timing and squash stretch, and this is my first project. And then we can hit create and go. So I've got my basic project open. Let's begin by adding a new layer. So I'm going to click and add another drawing layer. This is going to contain my path that I want the bouncing ball to follow. And so we can add that and close. And generally I like for my active drawing to be on top, so I'll drag that down. And now we've got a drawing layer. Now if you want your background to be something other than this gray, and it does render as black, you're going to want to go to the plus, and you can go down to a color card and add that to the scene, and the color card can be adjusted in the layer properties to adjust it to a different color if you like. I'm going to go with this basic white, and again I'm going to drag the color card down below my path, and I'm going to lock it so I don't accidentally move it around in the scene. Jump back here to the path. Let's get an idea of how we want the ball to bounce. So I'll grab my drawing tablet here, and let's select the pencil tool and draw a basic path that we want the ball to follow, just to give us an idea of how the ball should bounce. And that's kind of rough, but it'll get the point across. If you want to use a different color, you can of course select those different colors down here. Underneath your tool properties, you can adjust your size and the style of the pencil and etc. So that has my path on it. That looks good. Let's lock that so that we don't accidentally move it around. I've already set my frame rate at 24 frames when I created this project. We'll be animating with tween, so it won't be a big deal. I'm going to stop the animation at 24. You can zoom in on your timeline by using the zoom tool down here at the bottom. That should work just fine. Let's go to our drawing layer. I'm planning that the balls start here at 1, about frame 10 it'll hit its first bounce, 16, 20 or 21, and then roll for the remaining part of the animation. So that should work just fine. Next step, let's get a ball on our scene. So I'm going to go up here, and I've done this previously. Normally this looks like a rectangle, but I'm going to use it as an ellipse. You can adjust what size you want that to be with your size control. How you want that to, whether it's going to be drawn as a pencil or something else. Let's go over here to fuzzy dots, and I'm going to make my ball blue, and then I can either draw that on with my drawing tablet, or I can use shift and draw it out with my mouse as well. So let's draw something in. That looks very interesting, doesn't it? The next thing that we need to do is add a peg layer to our drawing layer so that we can properly keyframe. So I've got drawing layers selected. Down here at the bottom, you're going to have this control right here. If you mouse over it, you should get a little prompt, but it's to add a peg layer. So we're going to add a peg to this, and now when I go here to my transform, I'm able to move this inside the environment. Now notice right off that I've got my pivot point here in the middle of the screen rather than on the object itself. And this is normal. Anytime you create a new object inside the environment, you're going to see it create that pivot point. If you're not happy with that, well, let's look at what happens. Up here at the top, I've got my advanced animation controls. If that's not visible, you can go to Windows, Toolbars, and Advanced Animation. So right now, this is my pivot point, and I can adjust that pivot point with the arrows, and that moves the device. Here's my rotation. If I try to rotate it, you can see it is rotating around that center rotation point. If I'm not happy with that, hit the move and then select the center of the object, move that to the center of your object. So now your pivot is actually on the device, on the object itself. That makes life a little bit nicer. Now, if you don't have a fill, if you didn't have it autofill when you created the scene, you can go to the last frame and hit the F5 key, and that will extend the entire exposure for this, or you can just simply right click and go to extend exposure, and that will fill in so that your circle is now showing throughout the entire layer. Okay, so let's fill in our first animation, and let's go to frame 10. As I said, I want my ball to be placed here around frame 10, so I'm going to use the transform tool, select my circle, and drag it down there, and you can see it has created a keyframe, and it does all the tweening. However, it's moving it in a rather straight line. If you don't like that straight line, you can adjust that by going to the coordinate and control points. That's available through the menu up here. This is only on Premium. It might be on Advanced. I haven't checked. It is not in Essentials. So if you click on the plus key, you can open up the coordinate and control points and then be able to select that. By default, separate is going to be turned on, and that's what forces that straight line. So if I turn that off, it now will have some more control over that. So my keyframe is still there. Sometimes it deletes the keyframes. I've seen that happen before, so be aware that that needs to be turned off early. And let's jump over here to frame 16. That's where I want my next bounce to happen. There we go. And then we can easily tell where we are at the midpoint. And there we go. We've got that set. Then let's have it at 20 for the last landing. And again, midway. And now we've got basics. But it'd be nice to see where those control lines are, wouldn't it? To see what's happening with the ball bounce and why it's going in such a straight line between everything. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to go up here to View, Show, and then Control. And it should show me. Let's try that again. View, Show, Control. And there you can see the actual lines that it is following for the different movements inside the environment. Now, to fix what's happening here with my control lines, I can add some additional control points. To do that, we need to go to Windows, Toolbars, and Control Point. Make sure Control Point is turned on. Once it's turned on, this is actually the control point system here. Mouse over on your control line and hit the P key, and that will add a control point. This is not a keyframe. This is a control point to help guide Toon Boom for what you want it to do for the different animations. So I'm just going to mouse over all the different points, hit the P key, and quickly add my control points. And it looks like I need to go on out here to frame 24. There we go. And for frame 24, I want it to be over here. So it's just going to roll on off the screen. There we go. It looks like it goes down below the screen a little bit there, so let's adjust that control point. Bring that up a little bit so it stays above the bottom. I'm using the bottom of my line here to help me gauge where the bottom of the ball should be at all times. Okay, so now we've got the timing set for our ball and how we want it to flow throughout the scene. The next thing that we need to do then is to handle a little bit of squash stretch. So I'm going to jump over here to frame 10, and well, let's go back here to frame 9. And do we have our key? Yeah, our important keyframes are set. So I'm going to go here to 10, go to my transform, select, and then I'm going to squash that just a little bit and move it down so it's squashed. Then I can go back here to 9 and may need to unsquash it a little bit. I need to stretch it there. And that looks pretty good. So then let's jump over here to 10 or 11. Let's squash and rotate it so it looks like it's going up correctly. Good. Goes back to normal. Good. We need to jump over to here. Again, we're going to squash here, but it's not going to be as strong of a squash because we didn't have as much momentum coming into this, so it's not going to have quite the physics effect. Let's go back here. Let's stretch this a little bit. Rotate it. We could lengthen it a little bit. There we go. And then do the same thing here. Stretch it a little and rotate. Yeah, that's looking cool, isn't it? Okay, and then really we're not going to have much of a squash here for this last one because there's just not a lot of momentum left. And then we just roll off the screen. Good. So there we have a squash stretch ready to go. So the last thing, of course, that we need to do to the project is to render it and let the world see our great masterpiece. You can do a play render, and that will go through and render everything into whatever the default render is, or you can use File, Export, and do it as a movie. I believe it exports as an MOV or as an animated GIF. So we can just do that. It'll, yep, MOV, output file. We should give it a name for that. And you can select where you want that to be going to. So I'll put that on my desktop. And okay. There it renders. Nice and fast. And we've got our full render. Now, there was obviously a mistake on that. It is still showing my control line. So if you don't want your path to show in your output, turn off, just hide it, hitting the eyes on the layer, and do it again. File, export, movie. So we already got our name, so okay. And overwrite. And now we can do it without the guidelines showing, which is much nicer, much cleaner. So if this is interesting to you, if you want to go over the 12 principles and the basics of using Toon Boom, make sure that you hit a like or subscribe, hit the bell if you want the notifications when this is released. This will be its own playlist inside of my channel. I cover a lot of different topics that do with game development, animation, virtual production in my YouTube channel. So if you want to follow along, please do. If there's something specific you'd like to see about Toon Boom or Animate, which I've used Adobe Animate / Macromedia Flash for over 25 years. So this is a big shift to me to go to Toon Boom Harmony. Please let me know, what would you like to see in this? It is quite a different program than what I'm used to with Flash. So I'm going through that learning curve. Please follow with me. Have a great day.